Former Independent Police Investigative Directorate boss Robert McBride's testimony at the state capture inquiry has laid bare the tense relationship between IPID and the Crime Intelligence Unit. McBride told the inquiry that Crime Intelligence abused its Secret Service account to classify documents crucial to IPID's investigations. And this has sparked new questions about the state of our criminal investigation services and the relationship they should have with IPID. And my guests tonight are ENCA reporter Erin Bates and Head of African Futures and Innovation at the Institute for Security Studies, Yaki Sidiers, who will be joining us via our telephone line. But before we do that, let's take a look at this report from Erin Bates.
It's day 2 of testimony from former IPID head Robert McBride, and the claims are enough to leave one rattled.
Before you go there,
McBride is accusing former Police Minister Nathi Nhleko of scapegoating corruption busters.
Without a blink of an eye, he's willing to use processes to achieve his ends.
He's also pointing a finger at a well-known law firm.
Private legal companies, especially with a good reputation like Werksman, should not easily take upon cases that impinge on the independence of constitution-created bodies.
Nhleko tasked Werksmans with investigating contradictory IPID reports. One of these says McBride had been tainted by input from criminal intelligence officers, which was the reason for inconsistency.
in the first report, you said prosecute. Now the second report says don't prosecute.
The reports relate to the so-called rendition of Zimbabwean suspects. Nhleko used the case and associated reports to suspend Hawks head Anwar Dramat in late 2014.
So I'm not going to be the one that takes a decision.
Dramat wrote to Nhleko saying,
I have recently called for certain case dockets involving very influential persons to be brought or alternatively centralized under one investigating arm, and this has clearly caused massive resentment towards me. The so-called Zimbabwean rendition investigation is a smokescreen.
McBride's accusing Nhleko of targeting himself, Dramat, and former Gauteng Hawks head Shadrack Sibiya on spurious grounds. Nhleko hasn't yet applied to cross-examine McBride. The former IPID boss returns to the stand on Monday. Erin Bates, Johannesburg.
And thanks very much, Erin, that you are here with us again to update us on the goings-on at the state capture inquiry. The name of Nathi Nhleko looming very large in Robert McBride's testimony. The salient point, what is the key thing about Nathi Nhleko here?
The key allegation from Robert McBride is that Nhleko overstepped his authority as police minister and interfered with the independence of IPID. And really, all of those details about the different reports, the constitutional court case over McBride's suspension, which was then overturned after the judgment in 2016, all relate to a claim that Nhleko was part of a project to unravel and disable corruption-busting entities like IPID. And we must remember that Nathi Nhleko, as police minister, was one of the members of cabinet who defended the security upgrades to Nkandla. That very same matter was something that Anwar Dramat was looking into. At the time, this whole renditions matter was on Robert McBride's allegations, cooked up to get him out of the Hawks.
So, in effect, therefore, it is the Nkandla matter that led to problems for Robert McBride, and McBride's problems are as a result of problems that Sibiya and Dramat faced from crime intelligence as well. So, I mean, there are three units here. I'm trying to wrap my mind around it, right? So if you can just separate them.
And it's fair to get them confused.
Yeah.
In fact, when we heard from Robert McBride, or before we heard from Robert McBride, Advocate Paul Pretorius, Senior Counsel, laying out this organogram of all the different entities of state that work in law enforcement. So the key issue around Nkandla relates to Anwar Dramat, who was head of the Hawks at the time and then was suspended by Nathi Nhleko, or at the insistence of Nathi Nhleko. McBride's claim and Dramat's own submissions are that because Dramat, was looking into very sensitive political cases, he was targeted, and this renditions matter, which was about the extradition of Zimbabwean suspects back to that country, where 2 of them subsequently were tortured and killed, was used as a ruse or as an excuse to suspend Dramat. Where McBride relates to that is as head of IPID. IPID investigated these allegations against Dramat and others in the Hawks and had 2 contradictory reports. One was before McBride arrived. That had he alleges, undue influence of criminal intelligence. Police officers shouldn't have been involved. That report recommended criminal prosecution. McBride came in, asked about a number of high-profile cases and said, let's start from scratch. This criminal intelligence involvement here is dubious. Let's start all over again. The subsequent report from his time at IPID recommended no criminal prosecution. And that's where these 2 contradictory reports come in, which is why Nathi Nhleko then got Werksmans, the law firm, to do another report on these 2 reports and decide what should happen. And Werksmans recommended criminal prosecutions, which is why McBride says that the law firm erred and that they hurried the report and that they were acting improperly in interfering with matters of state. So it's fair to get them all confused, but the fundamental issue here is that at the base of it all, McBride claims there was a concerted effort to target these various agencies and people in them who are doing their constitutional duties of targeting corruption, and they were weeded out.
And not only corruption and crime for the... I mean,
crime, sure. The 2 go hand in hand.
These are the senior people within the Hawks, right? And he also talks about crime intelligence refusing him access to certain documents.
Yes, and not only crime intelligence, but also police ministers, because as head of IPID, interfacing with various police ministers, McBride says they've had problems investigating police matters. And this again brings in the tug and push and pull between the police ministry and IPID as the police watchdog. And McBride says, yes, that there have been instances where IPID has investigated allegations of misconduct by police, and very serious allegations, including things like rapes committed by police officers, torture committed by police officers, misconduct. They've asked the police ministry for certain documentation and are then told those documents are classified, which effectively ties IPID's hands in terms of committing or fulfilling its oversight in terms of the Constitution in investigating and keeping a watch on the police.
For the benefit of the people.
For the benefit of the people.
All right. Jacques Cilliers is joining us, and you are the analyst here. You've been following these events very closely, Dr. Cilliers. You tell me, what do you think, what should we read in all of this that's emerging from Robert McBride's testimony at the State Commission?
Well, McBride has been speaking about crime intelligence issues, and what I think has also emerged is that the report on the state security agencies that was delivered a few weeks ago point to really serious problems within the intelligence community as a whole. The report is really absolutely amazing reading in terms of the extent of corruption, abuse of power, and lack of a reference or adherence to the most basic tenets of intelligence, of the law, of the Constitution. So there is really significant problems that President Ramaphosa faces in cleaning up the broader intelligence community, in addition to the problems that Robert McBride has been pointing out. So I think these are really serious matters. There are in the broader report on state security agency, there are direct accusations of the fact that members of the intelligence community now had to swear allegiance, amongst others, to the president, not to the Constitution, of monies that were transferred, including to the Minister of State Security, and so on and so forth. So we really face a major challenge. South Africa does not have an intelligence community, and we know that within the crime intelligence community that McBride has been speaking about, and the Institute has done a lot of work on this, there is in actual fact no crime intelligence. We are, as a country, blind when it comes to dealing with crime matters, and as a country we are also defenseless as it comes to finding and resourcing broader intelligence matters.
Now, you mentioned this in the context of the state or the country, but what about at a personal, citizen, individual level? What are the implications of what we're hearing from McBride, as well as that which is coming out of that high review panel on state security units?
Well, what has been happening is that the intelligence community has turned on the ordinary South African and particularly on oversight systems and mechanisms. They have done that through corruption, through the infiltration of the media, through the surveillance of civil society organizations like Right to Know and others. And then, of course, through taking over the provision of VIP protection to a large extent. So I think ordinary South Africans need to be quite concerned about the deep state that has developed within South Africa and the extent to which, and this is also evident, the State Security Agency became party to the anti-Ramaphosa campaign in the run-up to the events of December 2017 as efforts to forestall a Ramaphosa win, which eventually he managed to do by a very narrow margin in December of 2017. So I think we need to be really concerned by what has come out by McBride and also by the high-level panel on state security.
Let's talk to Adam, who's joining us on the line from Benoni. Adam, welcome. Adam.
Hello?
Yeah, welcome.
Yes, I can't hear you, sir.
I can hear you. Just go ahead and make your comment or pose your question.
Yes. I'd like to tell Tim that Comrade Robert McBride, he's a very diligent worker, and he has given lots of it in the past, and he's done a lot of work for the country, and I feel definitely that there is a third force that is actually targeting him.
Thank you, Adam, from Benoni. So you mentioned a few names. Who's going to come next? Dramat, for instance, has he made any submissions to the commission?
Not as far as I know, although I stand corrected, he may have submitted some papers, and certainly some of his submissions in other matters linked to the renditions case have been cited in proceedings. But McBride actually continues on Monday, and then after him we expect to hear from Johan Boysens, the former head of Hawks in the KwaZulu-Natal province. But just to come back to what Adam said about claims that McBride has been targeted, that's McBride's own evidence. He claims that he and others like him, including people in SARS, in National Treasury and so on, were the victims of this concerted effort to erode state security and law enforcement agencies. And in fact, we do still expect evidence on the actual commission itself, and claims that parallel structures to the state that are sort of loosely linked to intelligence have actually been targeting the work of the state capture inquiry. And there's a claim in a report from Daily Maverick that the inquiry received a call to that effect.
Okay. Well, Dr. Yakis Silias, your comment going back to that high panel review of state security units, as well as what is emerging from the State Commission. How is the president, to your mind, responding to all of this? You said his campaign within the ANC was targeted by this parallel state agencies that you mentioned. So how do you think, what is it that you see him doing currently to respond to that?
Well, I think he's done the correct thing. The high-level report refers to the so-called principal agent network that was established in the run-up to the, quite a few years before the December 2017 elective conference, and that was the channel through which money, large amounts of money and agents were channeled to ensure that Ramaphosa did not win in December 2017. But of course, the first step, I think, has been the establishment of this commission and the report. But what is worrying is that the rot is so deep that one wonders if there is how can one trust anything that comes out of the State Security Agency? How can the president rely upon an agency which has been so deeply factionalized and involved in a vicious personal campaign to ensure that he is not elected? Where does this leave him? And the recommendations in the report are replete with references of urgent and immediate and action requiring President Ramaphosa to take really to treat this seriously. One wonders how, in an organization that is so secret and of which there is such a problem in dealing with, and that has wrapped itself in a cloak of secrecy, how he is going to deal with this. Who can he trust within this organization? And the report would indicate almost no one. This is really very concerning, I must say. And I've never seen anything like this. This is absolutely amazing.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Dr. Yaki Silias, anyway, thank you very much for talking to us. And Aaron Bates, keep up the good work. We always check you out to update us on the work of the State Commission of Inquiry into Corruption. Much appreciated. Thank you. Now, from the shadows into the black hole. If you needed to see to believe, then thank the Event Horizon Telescope, which has just produced the first ever direct image of a black hole. A groundbreaking scientific discovery, which we will discuss in a moment.